watch in that particular community. We hardly get anybody to show up. I bet you now when we have that meeting, we're going to have a lot of people. You know, we've preached for, you know, since I've been chief here, if you have a community and a neighborhood that communicates, you're going to have a safe neighborhood. If you have one that's not communicating, I don't care how much those houses cost, you're not going to have a safe neighborhood because no one knows what's going on in that neighborhood. No one knows who lives in that agency or in that neighborhood. So I'm optimistic that we're going to do some great things. The community was extremely appreciative. I've gotten all kinds of emails. We've gotten all kinds of feedback from the stuff that occurred in that meeting. Just how they were very appreciative that we had everybody there. You can see that we had a large turnout of our command staff and then the folks that actually are investigating the case to put it out there. So I'm hopeful that that's going to be something that we can build upon. And we have some future meetings that are actually related to what occurred out there going on in other places throughout East and South Sacramento. What was the second part of that? The Black Lives Matters now?
Well, I mean, the bigger question is there a number one on your list, the number one priority for this department?
Can I split it in half? Can I give it like a slash? If I can do that, it's two things. Number one is our relationship with the community, making sure that that goes in a positive direction so that we build upon. And we've got a lot of work done there, but you know, if you look at people that are coming to council and wanting to complain about what we're doing, so it's building on that. It's making sure we communicate better. It's making sure we have better relationships. The second one is making sure that our officers, that we have an organization that can pay to keep the officers here. The last thing, we've already got a lot of officers that are leaving. The last thing we want to do is have something where people start leaving this organization and going elsewhere. Because I got to tell you that officers that leave this one are highly sought after. We got people trying to pick us apart when it comes to officers to go into other agencies, and we need to retain them here. Now I could sit there and go right down the list talking about diversifying our organization and everything else that we have, but those two right now are probably the biggest ones that are impacting our organization, our ability to deliver quality service.
3.5 years on the job, what do you think people are going to remember from Sam Summer's stay as chief?
Well, you know, you put it 3.5 years, but it's also 33 years with the city. The way I look at it, it's all about the dash of what you did here. So I'm hoping that the time that I spend here, people are going to say that the place is better than what it was, that the Sacramento is safer, and that we've done more on the community outreach that we did in these last 3 years than probably we've done the last 2 decades when it comes to connecting with our community.
There are a lot of people out here, though you have done a lot of outreach, and I know we've covered some of the police outreach, or the efforts anyway, that say it's still just not enough. I'm sorry if somebody asked this already because I jumped in late, but is there a response to that?
Well, you know, I don't know what they're measuring, but with that said, you know, we can always get better when we reach out to our different communities. It's interesting because, you know, people say, well, I didn't hear that message or what have you, and I look at all the different ways that we communicate, and it never ceases to amaze me that, you know, there's even more ways that we have to, and I'll go into even the man shooting. So a lot of information that come out from the various medias, yet, you know, 2 days after we'd sat down with the community, and they really hadn't heard anything. They didn't know that we put information out. The only thing they had was rumor, because they weren't following some of the traditional media. So, you know, we started having discussions internally here that, you know, we need to make some of these things that we do now probably institutionalized. So when it comes to having a major event, is to actually just go right into community meeting mode. A lot of times we think that if we get with the media and we put it out on all the TV stations that we have, we put it out the Sacramento Bee, we put it on the radio, we go out with social media, and then, you know, we arm our people with information that should cover it, because we put out nextdoor.com and all of those stuff, and we still find out that there's still lots of gaps where people do not get information from any of those sources, and sometimes it's just good old-fashioned face-to-face is the best way to be able to get that message out. So,
Can you say, will you be advising the city council, the city manager on possible people to take your spot?
well, yeah, if they ask. And I mean, I can tell you one thing is that we have, I'll put our management team and the people that are in positions against anybody in the nation. Whether it's the experience that they have, whether the passion they have for the job, the training that they received prior here. You know, they all have advanced degrees. They all go to all the national training. We've made it a point in the last 3 years to make sure that they're sitting at the table when you have the Chuck Ramsey from Philly and Kathy Leonard from Washington DC and Bill Bratton, and you know, they're in the room with them and having conversations and seeing what's going on a national scale so that you can get best practice. So our team, our management team does a great job. So I would hope that they would take a hard look at the personnel that they have, because they have some great people.
We're gonna have a new mayor, a new city manager, a new chief, and potentially a new sheriff, all in, January 1st.
And a new public works director.
Okay, there
So
you go.
I gotta throw my plug in for my buddy Jerry Way.
So I mean, you have confidence moving forward once you're gone that the city will move in a direction that you hope it moves?
Yeah, I've known Darrell Steinberg a long time. I actually had a lot of conversations during the election on that. So I think that, he really knows the city. He really cares about the city. That's why he came back to do this job. So I think that he's going to be great for this position. They have Howard Chan in this position right now as the interim. And I can tell you what, I've known Howard since he's been here. And you want to talk about a quality guy, a stand-up guy, a guy that cares and he can do, get done guy. Howard is the man. So I was very happy to see that they put him in. I got to tell you, John Shiver is probably the first city manager I've had that was just like, he knew it all. From the experience that he brought in. I always felt comfortable that if John was providing advice, that I knew it was going to be sage advice because he'd been in the trenches in a couple of different big cities. But with that said, I think that their selection of Howard Chan is a great selection for the city going forward.
How
So
many
what was
openings?
the other position? Sheriff? Well, I'm glad Scott, I'll tell Scott that you said that he's going to win the congressional.
Potentially.
I'm just saying. I'll pass that along to Scott. So, yeah, there's a lot of change, but that's the great thing about life in general, and that's a great thing about here is change brings new ideas, fresh eyes on whatever issues we may have here, and it could be someone who comes up with the great suggestion to help our city and our county and our region.
Any plan after you're done?
Well, I'm not going to play golf with you, Bob, because you just didn't come to our tournament. So
You didn't have any spots open.
Oh, I did. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's convenient.
maybe beat you like a redheaded stepchild in golf or something along those lines. No, I have some different things. One is I have 3 daughters, so I probably get a little bit more family time in with that. I got some remodel projects that have kind of stagnated at home, and then I've had a couple of different inquiries on the private sector side. So, if one of those ends up really, striking a fancy, I might do something along those. But the first thing is I'm probably going to go take a little bit of a vacation, and no, not Disneyland, somewhere else. So.
Sorry again if this was already asked and I missed it. Back to this meeting tonight, what are the chances you think that the video from police is ever going to be released?
Oh, I think at some point it will be released. I'm not saying that it won't be released, but it's about timing of when the actual video goes out. And it's just like any video we have. You don't see us taking a robbery series, if we've got a suspect in custody and just playing that over and over in the media, when it's a situation you're talking about adjudicating something. It's something that I think you have to let the process go so that you have a fair hearing of whatever it might be that you have. And so we've kind of been steadfast, even when we have people that want us to put video out. We have media outlets, we have PRAs all the time. I don't care if, that you see some agencies across the United States, the greatest pursuits and all that stuff. We don't participate in that. I think that, there's a lot of voyeuristic stuff that really doesn't show our society very well. It doesn't show our communities well. And, in video in general, I put it out there before, and I had a nice conversation with Ed Fletcher over that had to do with that I get real concerned that it potentially could inhibit people from wanting the police to be there because they don't want the police coming into their their residence or their home or what have you, because they know that video is going to be out there. I feel sorry for communities like Seattle because they have it all online. And, I'm really not sure. I guess it'll all play out at some point if they can ever determine if they have an underreporting for crimes. I just hate to show people when they're at their worst on TV, or in the media, or I see it all the time on Facebook where people like to put that stuff when people are absolutely at their worst and they're showing them there. I just think that that just doesn't play well for our society in general.
At the same time, it might also appease some of the concerns out here, though.
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of like being a referee in the game. Nobody likes the referee, right? But they want the game to continue. And so that's our job. And sometimes people don't understand why we we do certain things. It'd be like me taking a person that maybe is wanted for child molester, right? And everybody wants to beat that person up. It's my job to make sure that they're safe, that they're always safe, and that they can make it and actually have their day in court, regardless of what everybody feels. And so as part of this is that there's a process here with the DA's office. We have to make sure that the DA can do a fair and impartial review of the case, and part of that is that they have all the information, and it's not something that you have, public wants to have, this is the outcome. Because if you don't know the law, if you don't know, policy or those type of things, it becomes very hard to make a judgment on something other than what you see. It's also just a snapshot. A video tells one little component of it, and it doesn't tell the whole thing. So when we have the video, I think it'll be important to make sure that the whole story is told. Good, bad, or indifferent, right? I'm not saying to justification, I'm just saying this is what the video is, this is what it represents, this is what the law is pertaining around, this is what policy practice, this is what training is, this is why things happen, so that there's an explanation that goes exactly what the video means. And I think that that way, then the video to me would be worthy of going out to the community, would go out to the public, because then there would be a full understanding of exactly what it means.
Well, we have this opportunity.
Sure.
What is the policy right now on body cameras and the funding for body cameras for your police department?
Yeah, so, we've been testing body cameras, and here's the hard part with body cameras, is you're looking at a technology that's emerging. So if you get in too early, you're gonna spend a lot of money for a product that's not very good, and then you're stuck with it. We've gone through several different iterations. We've gone through a couple different generations of the body camera, and we're at generation 2 right now. I think we're getting close to pulling the trigger on it, but it's very difficult because it's not perfect. One of the things that I see posted out there was like the mysterious camera falling off. Well, part of that has to do with the way that the camera's designed. If it's sitting on the outside of your clothing, they've got agencies across the United States where you actually see the bad guy swat the camera out from the officer as they take off, or the officer starts running and it falls off their equipment. There are technologies. There's one that actually sits behind your uniform, and there's like a little hole in it that sits there, and it's just like in a holster. That's a great one, right? Because it alleviates that concern about it falling off mysteriously and recording. But the problem is the battery life is 3 to 5 hours, and it gets super hot. So that we're trying to let the technology get the right one, but I think we're going to go ahead and make the move.
But you have funding, and the police department would be buying those?
Yeah, so we have 20 of them that are on the street right now. We've had 20 out there, and we've been doing the testing with it. And so we have about $500,000 that go towards that. Now, with that said, it's going to be an ongoing cost, because what you have after and where the big cost comes into is data storage. We do data storage with our in-car camera. We do it in-house, and so we buy the servers, and we kind of have an idea what that is. But when you look at data storage with like traffic stops, it's significantly less than when you have body cameras, because when you have body cameras, every one of your stops is recorded, right? Every time you go into a house, it's recorded. Every call you go on is recorded. So you have so much more data transmissions, and so that's where you get your recurring costs. And once you have it, you're going to end up having it for a few years, and so you have to pay. And the more cameras you put out, the more data storage. You can kind of see where this gets to be expensive, and then that's going to be an ongoing expense for the city, which takes away from other things, parks, and so that's the thing that's being mindful of what it is. And even with that, we had the one shooting out at Chavez Park that was here, and I don't know if you guys saw the video was actually released. And what had happened, they did it through Discovery, or and this is my understanding, the defense actually had, through Discovery, got the video, and then they gave it to News and Review, posted it. It really didn't show anything, it showed trees, but you could hear the audio, but it doesn't show the actual shooting, and that's part of the problem also. It's one view. So I always reference the NFL. How many angles did they have to get the call right? And so that's the other thing, is that when I talk about video, you have to be very careful, because it's one view, and we can show you, and matter of fact, Ms. Francine Turnauer, who runs Office of Public Safety Accountability, has some videos that kind of show that from one view, you would say, oh my God, they just executed that person. From another view, you can see that, oh no, he actually had a gun and he was shooting. But you couldn't see that from the one view of the video, it's just different angles. And it's just a lot more complex, and it's not as simplistic as people think, oh, you get the video cameras, it'd be great. Now, I will also add, who's my biggest demander of the video? Our officers. they're like, oh, you hurry up and give us these cameras. And so our officers want the cameras too, because they look at it as being able to also protect what they're doing out in the street and to give validation and you know, like a witness to exactly what they do when they make their stops.
You know, other cities have policies in place in advance about what footage will be released, what the surveillance is going to be, and annual report backs.
Right.
If it had to be a policy like that in Sacramento, you wouldn't be in this position because there would have been clear rules about what the man video could be done with it. Do you think we need a surveillance ordinance?
Well, when we do have videos, we don't release them, and so I mean there is a policy related to that. When you talk about an ordinance related to it, I don't know if you need an ordinance, but if there's a desire by the elected body to have something out there where they want to set some guidelines for doing that, and I think that's totally appropriate. Every community is different. I don't think the state should be involved in setting policy, but I do think that cities, if they want to have a certain level of policy, I absolutely agree that they should. It's not something that I would dictate at the end of the day. It's something that we would work with the elected body to say this is what our community wants or desires to have here in Sacramento.
Chief Summers, the 20 body cameras that you have out on the street,
Right.
in the pilot program right now,
Right.
what are you seeing from them right now? Are they being effective, or I don't know if any of the guys in the patrol car use them, but I understand that you got them on bikes, mounted police. How's it working right now?
And again, part of it has to do with the different technologies that they have out there. So the best one that we've had that we've found is kind of like our in-car camera system. And that one is where it actually is recording all the time. So that when the officer decides to actuate and turn it on, it goes back 30 seconds. Our old in-car camera system showed us just how bad it was when you don't have that, because you pick it up like after the incident. Our new in-car camera system actually has that, so it's got about a 30-second lead time, and you don't have the audio with it because it just doesn't have the ability to do that. But you have 30 seconds pre-record, which is with the body cams. So those ones we think have good merit. Those are the ones we're focusing in right now. Some of the other ones aren't as effective. That they do fall off. They have battery life that doesn't go, that doesn't meet up with what the expectations are. You look at how much time you have officers out on the street. If an officer has to go back and forth because his body camera's not working, then that's that much time they're not going to impact on the street. So with that said, I think we're closing down that one that has like a 30-second lead time. It's just the data storage behind it's a little bit expensive, and it's going to cost the city a little bit more money to go forward.
Are you working these between officers, or is this just the same set that get to use them all the time right now?
Well, initially we were kind of doing different officers, but then we started thinking that it'd probably be smarter to have the same officers do it so that they can do a real evaluation. Because if you have it and I have it and we evaluated different products, I'm not sure that's an apples to apples comparison. But if you have 5 cameras that you cycle through, you can say this was the best, and they can see the performance of it's the best, and that gives us a better observation or a better analysis of actually which camera to go with. So I think we're optimistic, and you'll probably see us pull the trigger on that or make a decision this year on that one. And as to policies, we also do have an in-car camera policy and a body camera policy that we do have in place right now.
But it does require a PRA to get it.
Well, right now we don't release video.
But you also don't release policy.
And that's something that we talked about, actually, about how we need to do that better. And that's not a very good practice on our part. One of it is our manual of policies is about like this. Some of our we thought about putting them all online, but there's also policy in there, and I think you requested the in-car camera policy, and part of it was redacted, and it was redacted for a reason, because part of that is we do have situations where they actuate, and we don't want people to try to defeat that, try to do something where it doesn't go on, or they know that's going to happen. And could it be a variety of reasons? Yeah. Do we want people in the backseat because we're trying to get a statement or trying to find out, something along those lines? Yeah. That's part of the stuff that we do. If we can record and get a statement to solve a crime, then that's exactly what we want to do. But with that said, I think that we need to go through our policies, and there's a lot of ones that we have that don't require that kind of vetting, don't require those kind of redactions, because there's not a safety concern or a tactical concern. And those ones we should have online, and we should be doing a better job so you don't have to do a PRA to get those policies. I mean, you're looking at, you mean, do you have to like go this one to this one to this one? No, you have to evaluate the situation that you have to see that it's appropriate for the response. So, and a lot of times we try to integrate the taser into what we do. But I think that we also have to start looking at additional options. We've had other less lethals out there in the pepper gun and shotgun, but we just haven't proliferated as far out with the line staff. And so we need to make sure that we put more options out there in the officers' hands. Unfortunately, with all that said, with less lethal, we still don't have a phaser that goes on stun. The day we have that one will be a great landmark day for all police departments across the United States. Nobody wants to shoot somebody and kill them. Nobody comes to work to be in a shooting. It's devastating, not only for the family who has the loved one that's killed, it's devastating for the officer that goes through it. I was in a shooting myself years ago, and it's something that I live with for my entire life. It's just it's a tough situation. So I look for tech industries to come up with something that's better than what we currently have, because even using the shotgun, even using the pepper balls are not a very effective tool when it comes to using less lethal devices. So I needed a glass of water.
Yeah. You guys, we're gonna